What is up, everyone? Oh, I forgot to change that. So, Scott Brandt coming to you on this chilly, awesome Sunday evening. My co-host Miriam is busy with some stuff, so it's just me tonight. It's solo dolo. Let's go. Good times and whatnot. So excited for this. And it's interesting. There were some things this week that came up for me through discussions. But of course, before we start, I have to give a shout out to the sponsor for the podcast, that being Jasper Axelrad with Tabala Cuisine. And just want to thank Jasper for what she does with Tabala. I know she is talking in regards to shutting down for the winter. I believe she said it would be the 20th is what she was saying. So next Sunday. And so she's doing some switching with Tabala. And I know one of the things that she had talked about was having a segment of Tabala's Food for Thought. And so that will be part of the sponsorship, part of what we do to highlight what she does. But she is a great individual. Her being a sponsor is a beautiful thing. So I want to give a shout out to Jasper for what she does. But it's interesting because as you're going through life, as you're going through this journey, and wherever you're at on this journey beyond divorce, it doesn't matter, because you've got to remember that plenty of people have gone on this journey before. But I was looking and thinking, because you start considering just the impact that a divorce has on an individual. And when it comes to their thoughts, their feelings, the stories that they tell themselves, man, those can be very detrimental because of the mindset. Your mind starts playing with you. You start asking questions. You just feel as if you may not be worthy. I know for me, the biggest thing that I dealt with, the story that I told myself, was I was not worthy. And it was a sad thing when I really look at it. So one thing you'd have to consider for yourself is, if you're on this journey, what questions are you asking yourself? What stories are you telling yourself that you need to adjust? You need to change in regards to making sure that heading into the future, you're not bringing that shit with you, whatever it is. And that can be tough because your mental capacity when you're dealing with these stories, these thoughts, if you do not have that tribe, you don't have the group that is there for you that can jump in and break the negative thought pattern that you're on, the negative cycle that you're on when it comes to your thoughts, it's going to be tough because you're with yourself 100% of the time. The interesting thing when you think about that is you are 100% responsible for things that are taking place. You are the catalyst. You are the integral parts of whatever's taking place. And it's unique because if you're getting in a relationship and you have the same garbage popping up, you have the same issues popping up, you need to look at yourself. And that can be tough because it's like, man, now I got to take responsibility for my actions. I got to take responsibility for who I am. That's not easy because a lot of times we want to find individuals to pass the blame on, to take responsibility for our actions and take responsibility for what's going on. And so that can be a tough thing to overcome because we're so prone on trying to pass the buck, trying to pass the blame on to others. And that just is not going to work because one way or the other, you're going to constantly get into the same vicious cycle unless you work on yourself. And I went and looked up some statistics, and the statistics that I was looking up is just mind-blowing. And so we know, if you hear that a lot of times within America, the divorce rate is 50%. And it could be higher depending on what is taking place, who you're looking at, who's taking the numbers and whatnot. So I went and looked up some statistics here, and it shows that statistics show that in the United States, 50% of the first time marriages fail. And so I look, and based on the journey that I've gone on, the looking back, the tools, the resources, things that I'm doing to work on myself. And so I do speak highly, being grateful that the divorce did take place. Which when you think about that, when you hear people speak that way, they're like, you probably look at them, you're like, you're grateful that that took place, because it's such a painful experience a lot of times. And for myself, I'm grateful that it did take place, because it shook me. It brought me to where I'm at today. And it's really opened up the doors where I'm working on myself, doing the different things to make sure I progress and grow and be the best version of myself going forward. There's a couple of things that came up this week that I'll talk about, and I look at it and there's a lot of correlations for myself. And it's, man, I just have to scratch my head sometimes, be like, oh my goodness, I really jacked it up. It's okay. So I had to learn from it, grow from it. So first time marriages, 50%. 67% of second marriages fell. So you went from 50% to 67% in that second marriage. And so I start looking and analyzing my journey that I've gone on. And hopefully, if it sucks that you're on this journey, but it doesn't suck. But it's one of those things that there's things that you have to look at and find the positivity in what took place. So for me, the positive thing that took place was I've been forced to look at myself, been forced to look at my shortcomings, and what do I need to work on going forward? Who do I want to be going forward? What do I want to bring to the table going forward? And so these are things that you have to ask yourself. But going from 50% for the first marriage to 67% for the second marriage, it's because individuals are not working on themselves, not changing their mindset, and they are going into that next relationship the same person that has not adjusted, that has not grown, that has not made the progression, because it is a tough thing to go and work on yourself and look at what you did and what did you screw up on, what do you need to adjust, what do you need to do to be a better person going into that next relationship. The biggest thing for me that I look at it is the mindset piece. It's the stories that you're telling yourself. And a couple episodes we had talked in regards to 3 things to be mindful about to be a better partner. And the last thing in those 3 things was you need to live your own life. And so I look at my situation, and when I went through the divorce, I was single on my own again. I'd look and people be like, and I'd hear people speak, man, being single is great. I'd be like, you guys are crazy. Being single sucks. And I was like, man, and went through the process, forgave myself, forgave my ex-wife, ended up giving myself closure, working on myself. And now I look at it and I'm like, you know what? Being single is a good thing. There's a idea that John Kim talks about, and it's a unique perspective, that being of being single on purpose. And so when you hear that, being single on purpose, what comes to mind for you? What does it mean to you to be single on purpose? And everybody can give different things. Everybody can give different responses to that. And so for me, being single on purpose is a matter of looking, growing, seeing what needs to be changed, what you have to work on. What do you need to do to become a better version of yourself from the past, that past relationship, whatever it was. What are you going to do to become a better version of yourself? And so we went from 50% of first-time marriages failing to the second marriage being at 67%. And then third marriages, 74% of third marriages end in divorce. So we have gone from 50%, make sure I got my numbers right here, to 67%, up to 74%. So going from the first marriage to, if you get to third marriage, the percentage of the divorce occurring has increased by 24%. That is mind-blowing. That's baffling when you think about it. I would have you ask yourself, why do we see such a large increase going from divorce occurring with that first marriage to it jumping up to 74% for the third marriage? You are at a percentage of almost 100% of marriages failing. I don't know. I'm like, that is nuts. But when I look at it, it's because people are jumping from one relationship. They haven't done the work to be whole and healthy going into the next relationship. And then they're carrying the garbage, the shit, the baggage with them into that next relationship. And then they just go through the same spiral again. They go through that vicious hamster wheel again. And they ask themselves, what is going on here? It goes back to the individual. It goes back to you. What are you doing to grow? What are you doing to change your perspective? And so man. And so for me, like I talked about, being single on purpose, for me, is when I look back, that growth process, looking at my mindset, looking at my thought process, looking at how I viewed myself and the stories that I was telling myself. So when I look at being single, being on my own again after going through the divorce, I was in a place where it sucked to be by myself. I truly enjoy being around people, but I was used to having somebody around. I was used to having somebody there. And I look and see that I had lost myself in the marriage. I had my identity as the relationship and only the relationship. And so I got married young. So I truly didn't know myself. I had a lot of growing to do. But it's the fact that I was very immature and I was looking for somebody else to fill a hole that I wasn't willing to give myself. And so that's one of the reasons when I look back and I was like, man, this is why when I hear people saying being single is great, and I was like, no, you're crazy. Being single sucks. No, because I was relying on somebody to complete me. I was looking at somebody else to fill a hole that I wasn't giving myself, that I wasn't filling myself. And so it's just powerful when I look at that. It's powerful when you do the mind shift piece, you start shifting the mindset. And one of the biggest things that I talk about is you've got to complete yourself. You have to be the one that completes you. Other individuals that are in your life, whether it's a business partnership, a friendship, a romantic relationship, that other person is not meant to complete you. They're there to complement you. But ultimately, you have to complete yourself. But how often do we see people that are doing that? How often do we see people in relationship that are not completing themselves? They're looking to somebody else to complete them. And it doesn't work because you're giving up your power. You're looking outside of yourself to somebody else. that is probably in the same boat of being in a position of them looking for somebody else to fill them. They're looking for somebody else to fill a hole that they're not willing to give themselves. They're not willing. So maybe they don't truly love themselves. And so they're looking at somebody else to come in and love them. But how does that work? How effective is that when you are looking for somebody else to love you and you're not even willing to love yourself? You're not willing to love who you are, the flaws that you have, the quirkiness that you have, just who you are as a person. You don't love yourself for who you are, man, no, it's going to be hard for people to love you for who you are because you're putting out that energy, you're putting out that vibe. And it's just one of those things. It's a complete mind shift change. And you've got to do the work. The work is not fun sometimes. The work is not easy because you have to look at yourself in the mirror and be like, man, I need to change this. I've got to adjust this. This is what I need to work on. And accept yourself for who you are. But it's also the fact that you got to give yourself grace. And I know Patrick is big on talking about that, of giving yourself grace. Because you got to remember, you have your back 100% of the time. And so if you're not going to give yourself grace and forgive yourself for what took place, and you're trying to find that somewhere else, somebody to forgive you, it's not going to work. And so John, I'm part of his community for texting. So he had sent out a couple texts here. And the first one that really spoke volumes, because I look at what I did and how I handled my emotions and feelings, and it was not good. I really tried to run away from the emotions. I would tell people, I'm fine. But man, inside I was hurting. I was sad. There was days I was crying, which is okay. You know what? That's a way to get the emotions out, to cleanse yourself and whatnot. And so John had sent this text out, and he said, if you don't grieve the death of the relationship and allow yourself to feel everything you have lost, but instead just push it down, you will cope in other ways. If not with sex, drugs, or food, then maybe by jumping from relationship to relationship. Whatever you haven't grieved is the virus you will carry into all of them. And so it goes back to that statistic that I talked about when it comes to the divorce rate going from 50% to 67% to 74%. That's just nuts. It's like, okay, if you've gone through a divorce one time, you need to do the work and you need to look and say, what do I need to adjust? And then you get into the next relationship, you get married, and it happens all over again. You go through another divorce. There needs to be warning flashes, warning symbols, warning noises to let you know, hey, something's going on here. You've gone through it twice. And then you see the rate of 74% for the third marriage going on. That is not going to work out. Hey, what's up, Delaware? Hopefully everything's going well for you, brother. But, oh, man. It is one of those things. So when I read this and I look at myself, man, there was junk that I had to deal with. And I think a lot of people are on that island of the junk that's around them. And you just don't want to work on it. You just don't want to do what you need to do. Hey man, I'm doing well. Delaware, I'm doing great. I know Patrick's on the mend, so hopefully soon we have Patrick coming up with us in different things and whatnot. So yeah, no, it's good to see you jump on, check out the stream and whatnot. Appreciate the support. But yeah, it's like we're on an island of junk around us. We don't want to face it. We're like, what is all this trash doing around us? Yeah, it's not gonna work. It's not good. You got to face it. You got to go through that trash and find the positivity, find the treasure that you can work with and do what you need to. But it's not easy work. People don't want to go dig. And so it's just not going to work out. And that's one of those things that you just got to work on it. But it's unique in regards to the fact that what is your relationship with yourself? What are you doing right now to mend the relationship with yourself? You've got to look and ask yourself, what stories are you telling yourself? What thoughts do you have? What energy are you putting out? What are you showing up and showing to others? So it's a matter of the fact that you've got to mend the relationship with yourself. And because you are the focal point in any relationship, is that you've got to work on yourself. And so we've got Della Worm here that he's providing his thought. My thoughts on relationship, what I've learned is that people aren't their true selves when they meet someone. And as they get more comfortable in their relationship, they shift back to who they really are. And that ultimately puts two people together that barely know each other. That is huge there. And it's true. It's the fact that a lot of people don't want to show up as their true self. A lot of times people are putting up this front and trying to impress somebody because of what we've been told as a society, what we've been told through the paradigms, the relationships that we may see on TV. Thanks Disney, thanks all the movies, Hallmark movies, all that and all that garbage there. But yeah, no, you go into a relationship and you don't show up as your true self to start with. And then, like Della Worm was saying, you get comfortable and you have two individuals that didn't show up as their true self. They get comfortable and then they start letting that guard down and then they show who they truly are. And that just does not work out because now you have individuals that are showing up and being completely different individuals. And then both individuals are looking at each other and they're like, what is going on here? Who is this person? Where did this person come out of? Left field and whatnot. So it's, man, you've got to show up as your true self. And that's not easy because it can be scary. You show up as your true self, you may be judged. And people don't want to be judged. So that's why we're coming in as our pseudo self with the mask on and not being true to who we need to be, true to ourselves, because we need to just show up right off the bat and let people know who we are. That's going to make that relationship so much easier. And it's a beautiful thing if you can show up as your true self. And let's see here, Della Worm. My current girlfriend told me a few months in we are way too comfortable with each other. And my response was, is that not a good thing? Being yourself and being able to be comfortable with who you really are with each other. And I think it's one of those things that you may be there and the person was seeing one thing to start with and then things are moving and they're like, well, that's not how this was originally. And now we have it here. And so we have to understand change is the aspect of life that is always going to be there. Change is going to happen and whatnot. And so, yeah, no, you got to be true to yourself. And so hopefully being true to yourself doesn't do the disregard or whatnot that's going to come in and take place. And took her a while to understand it, but 4 years later, she's still here. And that's awesome to hear, man. Having somebody that's been there with you and just allowing that, starting to see it. But I think what we run into is people aren't used to people being true to themselves and being their solid self, their true self. And so it can scare people. Yeah, exactly. So just be yourself. Yeah, no, that's very true, Della Worm. You just got to be true to yourself because that's going to make the relationship easier. And it's going to help you find out if the relationship is something that is needed in your life, or do you need to adjust? Do you need to look at a different route? Because people show up as their fake self, their pseudo self, and then they get in a relationship, and then they start showing their true colors, and all of a sudden they're in a very committed relationship, and they hate each other because it's changed. And so I think the other unique thing, though, is that if there is a quirk, there's a flaw of somebody, and you're dating them, you're like, oh, that's so cute. And then you get married, and you're like, this is stupid. I hate this about you. You were dating, and you're like, that's cute. And now you're upset about it. You got to understand that people have flaws. And these flaws are not easy to change if somebody doesn't want to change it. If that's who they are, it can be a tough task to change. And so you've got to just understand that if that quirk is there, that flaw is there starting out, and you look in the future and you're like, I'm not going to be able to stand this. This is not going to be good. You better do something. You better decide before you get in a committed relationship. And then you start adding to the stats that we see with marriages and divorces occurring and all that craziness. And so I had posted a question last night on, was it last night? I think it was last night on Facebook. And it was very interesting to see the responses and whatnot. But it's a beautiful thing because you can start seeing what people value and what drives the aspect of whatever's taking place. So the question I had posed was, what makes a relationship healthy? And so ultimately, you've got to look at it. This is an individual aspect. Like, there's not a one size fits all. And so, Delaware, when does a flaw become a flaw? It's all based on opinion. That is true. The flaw, somebody could say this isn't a flaw, and then you look at it and your opinion be like, no, this is a flaw. And so that is truly your lens that you're looking at life through. So you can't get mad because you got to understand everybody's looking at life through their lenses, and they're going to see things differently. So one person may say that's a flaw, and then you come across somebody else and they're like, that's not a flaw. Like, that's just a quirkiness or whatever it is. And so that is true. It's a personal opinion. Everybody's got opinions. And so that's what makes it beautiful with the human race, is the opinions that we all have. And then depends on your opinion of what the word healthy is. Yeah, so that's true. Because everybody, that's the thing. When you ask questions, you got to get clarification, because healthy may mean something different for everybody. So you just never know. But some of the things that I had received is it is healthy when established out of mutual respect, fueled with kindness, and maintained with love. And so it's interesting because when you start looking at answers, you start seeing how people answer. You've got what's the foundational piece of that you're going to build on? And so it's unique because everybody's got a certain foundational piece that gets built upon that structures that relationship, whatever it is. Somebody else had responded: mutual respect, communication, trust, support, and shared goals. I think communication, for me, when I look at it, communication is huge. But ultimately, the starting point for me is the transparency and the vulnerability. That is a huge thing for me in a relationship, because being vulnerable and showing up as your true self and not being fearful. Because when we look at a relationship, that relationship it should be there to give you a safe space where you can be vulnerable and transparent. But you get a lot of individuals that are in relationships and they can't be vulnerable and transparent because they don't have that safe space. The other person's not creating a safe space for them. And that can truly impact what's going on. And so a relationship is there for you to have that necessary safe space to be able to show up and be your true self. Because think about it, if you're in a relationship and you can't show up as your true self, what is that doing to you as an individual? What is that doing to you emotionally? What is that doing to your health? what is that doing to you as the entire person? We got a cat going on crying right now. Hey, out wherever you were. Think you went out. All right, cool. But oh man, if you are in a relationship and it's not creating a safe space for you and you can't be true to yourself, that's not a good relationship. But it goes back to the opinion that the person has, how they see life. And so it could be one of those things that they grew up in that type of environment and they're used to it. And so that can be tough because everybody has their different experiences. And so you're bringing two people together with different experiences, and just the craziness that that can cause by the difference of experiences. Let's see here. Della Worm is sharing that having a partner share your morals and values are huge, in my opinion. Yeah. And so when you look at the relationship for yourself, Della Worm, that's the driving point for you, is having a partner that shares morals and values. And so that should be one of those things that when you are looking at it, the non-negotiable list. And I've talked about that a little bit. I know Miriam's been big on that, but ultimately you've got to have a list of non-negotiables. And these are the things that you need to have in the relationship. And if it's not there, you can't back down. You can't adjust and be like, well, this person, I really, really love them. They're awesome, but they are going in and destroying this non-negotiable. If you give up on that non-negotiable, you're going to hate life, because that is your boundary there. That's the boundary that they have to respect. That's the boundary for yourself in that relationship. And so if you're not honoring your non-negotiables, it's going to be tough. You're going to end up being very angry, being very pessimistic. You're going to have a relationship that's not functioning properly. But then again, like I said, this is my opinion. This is how I think. This is how I see it. So you take it or leave it. And that's the other thing that I talk about. What I speak on, what Miriam speaks on, it's not the end all be all. This is our experience. This is what we've gone through. These are the tools. These are the strategies. And so it may not work out for you, or it may not fit you, which is cool. But don't have us up here and be like, man, they know everything, or man, they give a lot of great information. And if it doesn't fit you, don't try to fit it in there. Don't try to do whatever, because we're all human. And if you have this expectation of whatever's going on, those are predetermined resentments. And so if something happens, we fell, we make a mistake, we screw up, you're going to be mad. You're going to be upset. So that's the biggest thing that we got to understand when we're looking at people. We cannot have these expectations, put people up on pedestals, anything like that. And then when they fail and make a mistake, you're all mad. Well, you had these expectations of somebody, and so you've created predetermined resentment. And so, yeah, we had an individual that had talked about trust. And so that's one thing that they look at for a healthy relationship is trust. Had a good friend, transparency and honesty. And I believe, let me see here. So I had asked, do you believe transparency builds the trust, or does trust need to be established before transparency can be seen in the relationship? And so my buddy had said in response here was transparency builds the honesty. And so that's huge there. So that's something that it's what they're looking at. It's their foundation piece. It's what they need. And so it's very beautiful. Just looking at how people look at life and whatnot. JM Joe. Let me see here. Well, big trauma. I have memories in my head that won't ever go away. I am a happy person, but I think too much. Insomnia. And even if I know I'm worth it, I've been let down by so many people after my accident that stays in my mind. When I love, I open myself to them. I never cry in front of the people I'm showing myself as happy all the time. But in front of the one I love, sometimes I break down. Doesn't happen often, but then he'll tell me, don't cry. I need a strong woman. Like what I have to say, or what I have to stay as a rock, not feeling anything. I'm in hiding. Like I'm hiding everything since 10 years. Can't you just fucking accept it? And that's one of those things that you got to look at it. So if you have that partner that is saying they're not acknowledging your emotions, they're not acknowledging who you are, that's not a safe space for you. So you can't show up and be your true self. And so you're showing up with your pseudo self. So that's something that each individual has to look for themselves. And so the relationship, it's the aspect of who you are. And every relationship is going to be different. But ultimately, when you look at it, it's the piece that the relationship has to create a safe space for you. You have to have a aspect where you can build your container. And if you don't have that safe space, your container's cracking and you're losing yourself. You're not able to grow and progress. And so that's a tough one because you're doing what is your aspect of who you are as an individual. But then you have that aspect where you're not getting the support from that person closest to you, and it can be tough. And so you've got to ask yourself, you got to look at your energy management, and you've got to look and ask yourself, if this continues and it's 5 years down the road, is this something that I'm going to want to have in my life? Is this going to be good for me? Is it going to allow me to grow and become the best version of myself? And so it's a question that you got to ask. So very, very tough. Hopefully it's a matter that you've got a tribe that you can feel safe in, you can feel secure in, you can feel as if you're not being judged. And that's the biggest piece is a lot of people run into the situation where they just feel like they're judged and then they don't want to open up. So it's tough. That is a tough situation. Delaware here, if you feel like you can't be yourself in a relationship, it is you in that relationship. Yeah, no, that is true. My mom's brought up before through some studies that she had is that what you push out on other people is reflecting who you are. And so that is true. If you're not showing up and you're not you in the relationship, that's on you. You've got to look, it's internal work. And so if you want change to take place, that starts internally. That's with you. It's not your external world impacting your internal world. Internally, what's going on is going to impact your external world. So it's one of those things. It's the work that has to be done. You've got to do the work, and it's not easy, but it's well worth it. But that's where it comes down to that you've got to find that tribe that you can feel comfortable in, that you have that safe space. You don't feel like you're being judged. Also, that's where a coach can come into play. And so that's something that recently really has adjusted for me through some different discussions and whatnot. But originally when I was getting into coaching, I was looking at working with divorced gentlemen because I've gone through it. Hence the reason that we had the podcast and whatnot. But then my mom was asking me, and then a good friend that really brought up this unique perspective. And so it's been brought up, and it's like, why don't you work with both men and women that have gone through divorce? I was like, all right, so that's something that's adjusting for me. So I do have it open where if you need somebody to talk to, you need that coach, I'm open to both male and female. It's a pivot. It's all good. I'm excited for it and whatnot, just because Jasper brought up the fact, she's like, you know what? You bring in a very neutral stance and you create a non-judgmental space for people to show up and be true to themselves and be able to express and talk and do what they need to grow and do whatever they need to go from their baseline to a thriving life, whatever part that may be. So that's something that I do offer as the coaching piece. If you'd like to, you can reach out in the show notes. I do have the email address that you can send an email. It's TJ, the Journey Beyond, BD0711 @gmail.com. And then we have JMO Joe. It's not the fact that I'm I'm not myself. I'm myself 100% of the time, but there isn't a magic thing that can withdraw memories of my head. So it's normal to break down sometimes. I think there's nothing wrong there. Yeah, no, honestly, that was something that we talked about in our coaching class last week, is the fact of its neuroplasticity. And so you'll have memories in your mind, and on your mind, your brain, when your thought is going down that neural pathway, whatever it is, it can go through this cloud and then shatter. And so it's work though, but you can adjust how that memory impacts. The other thing that you could potentially look at, and they had talked about, it's a gremlin technique. It's getting outside of yourself and having an external. So it's giving a name and a face to whatever it is. Noelle Cordeaux, who's one of the founders for the Journey Coaching, had talked about a client that she had. And one of the clients went through the gremlin technique and it's like, I have this gorilla that I call, I think it was Joe or somebody like that. So it was outside of her. And then when she'd reach out and something was going on, she'd be like, man, Joe's being an asshole today. And so it's getting outside of yourself. It's getting from the emotional brain to the logical brain. So there's some other different things and whatnot. But that's where you, as an individual, you have to be ready for the coaching. You've got to be ready for the change. And so what you're experiencing, that is unique to you as an individual. You may have other individuals that are going through something similar, but you can't beat yourself up. Can't judge yourself either, because this is where you're at right now in your journey. And so that's where it's finding the people that you can surround yourself with, finding the tribe, finding people that are non-judgmental and will be there for you and allow you to have that space and give you and create that space for you. So that's something for myself that I look at. Like I said, you can take it or leave it. Delaware here, 100%. There's nothing wrong with it. Change the perception of you breaking down to sharing your true self. Okay, great advice there, Delaware. You can't withdraw memories, but you can change how you react to them. And so it's part of that neuroplasticity, the neural pathways, and adjusting and doing the work. And so there also may be where maybe you need to go see a therapist, which is okay. Therapy and coaching go hand in hand great together. Therapist is taking you from rock bottom to your baseline. A coach is working with you from your baseline to getting you to thrive in your life, whatever point it is. So it is something that goes hand in hand perfectly. But that's the thing. You can't be fearful to ask for help, because there was a quote by Les Brown. He said that to stay strong, you have to ask for help. And so that may be the route, but you have to make the decision. Each of us are individuals. And so there's things that we have to look at. Delaware, it's how your conscious mind reacts to your unconscious mind. And the more you react in a certain way, the more you train yourself to react like that in every situation. And that's true. It's very true. Your conscious mind impresses upon your subconscious. And so it's your mind's very powerful. It is a very powerful thing that you own. It's a big asset. And it goes in regards to the fact of, are you allowing people to come into your mind rent free? You've got to protect your mind. You got to protect who's getting into your mind, who has access to your mind, what they're telling, what they're speaking to you. And so it also goes into play of, what are you doing? What are you putting into your mind? What are you reading? What are you listening to? Who you're surrounding yourself with? So there's a lot that goes hand in hand. Yourself, working on yourself, but also looking at the other parts that you have control over. So, yep. So this is, for me, ultimately just thoughts that have occurred. And so that's the aspect of, what is your relationship with yourself? Because I was talking to a business coach, and he was saying that I'm in a aspect here of, when I'm working with individuals, it's it's a relationship piece, but it's the relationship piece with the individual themselves. And I never thought about that. And I was like, man, that is unique, because it does come into play of the relationship. What are you doing? What are you working on with your relationship to mend it with yourself? How is your relationship with yourself? And I was like, man, I've never thought about that. So it's a unique thing to really truly think about. So just some thoughts, some food for thought and whatnot. And so we're getting close to the end of the episode. And like we always do, I'll end up doing pod decks by myself. It's all good. Anybody that's watching, if you want to give your response to it, go ahead. More power to you. Let's love to hear what you see here and whatnot. But yeah, no, the pod decks are great. So I do have, there is a discount code. It's Let's Go 26. So ultimately, Travis Brown, who created Poddex, last night they were doing a giveaway for a Rotocaster. And so he was talking, he's like, you know what? If there are individuals that are streaming on Twitch, this is a great tool for you that while you're on Twitch, you can engage with your audience with some different things, some different questions. If you're live streaming, it's another way for engagement. It changes things, and it's great conversation starters. So honestly, the question that I had, what makes a relationship healthy? That was one of the questions from Poddex. So it's a great tool. If you're looking at getting something else and having a tool that is great for conversation pieces, highly suggest looking into Poddex. You can get physical decks. They also have an app. And so you can pay monthly or you can pay for a full year and whatnot. So let me go ahead and we'll pull up here. And let's see here. How Dare You is the deck that I'll jump in here. So let's see here. Question: would you stop talking to all of your friends for $1 million? Oh my goodness. Honestly, $1 million, when you think about it, that goes very quickly. So would you stop talking to all of your friends for $1 million? No, screw that. The relationships are more important to me than money, because you can always make more money, but relationships, man, are huge. And when you think about $1 million, that goes very quickly. We have Delaware that said, "Just make new friends." Laugh out loud. That you could go make new friends, but then does that go into this where your new friends that you're making, can you not talk to them? So it's one of those things. But honestly, for me, when I look at who I am, I couldn't take $1 million and stop talking to my friends. I just couldn't do it, because I enjoy talking to individuals. I enjoy building the relationships. I actually had a phone call today. I reached out to a good friend of mine. We were talking about some different things, but we were on the phone for an hour and 16 minutes. And so I'm like, man, based on this question, I'd be like, no, can't do it. So I'll take the friends over the $1 million. Let's see here. No, we can't do that. Well, we could. Let me see here. What is your guilty pleasure? Guilty pleasure. I think for me, I enjoy doing the live stream. I enjoy doing that. So, guilty pleasure. It's a pleasure to do the live stream. I enjoy doing that. So it's not a guilty pleasure. I don't really think I've got a guilty pleasure. Maybe because I enjoy reading books. I enjoy doing something different and getting new knowledge. Maybe having 6 books going out at one time right now, but then buying new books because I enjoy reading. I don't know. So let's see here, Delworm. Well, that's pretty easy. Just don't call them friends, call them life colleagues. Okay, so a way to get around that question of stop talking to your friends and then get paid $1 million. So I can see you can do that. That's yep. Let's see here. And Delaware, he has talked about his guilty pleasure being tequila. Okay, that can be one of those. So let's see here. Let's see. So Jam Joe. I've been hit by a car at 15 years old, 24 days of coma, had to relearn to talk, walk, eat while right auditioning. Well, everything, my brain started back. I was alone and intense therapy work. I tell myself to come back the best that I could so my friends and everyone around me wouldn't worry too much about me. My father never came to see me or to be there for me after the accident. And like all that work on myself, thinking that I'll be finally back, surrounded by my friends when I'll be back. But let me see here. But not completely alone since 10 years. Okay. Yeah, so that right there, man, you had a very long, treacherous journey. And it looks like you're still working on the journey. Yeah, no. Yeah, I don't, man, speechless. This hear what you've gone through, JM Joe. Delaware. Well, JM Joe, you have people here that care about you. It's a start. No, that's true. Yep. Build the tribe, find people. Ultimately, yeah, just build your tribe. I would say build the tribe, find people that you can surround yourself with is very, very important. So that's my view on it. So, but ultimately you've got to figure out what's best for you and whatnot in regards to getting to the next level, getting to thrive and get into back to what you would consider normal, back to who you are as an individual. So let's see here. WTF. So let's see what we got. What is the weirdest thing you have seen in someone else's home? Oh my goodness. What is the weirdest thing you have seen in someone else's home? I don't consider anything weird. Honestly, you can look in the home of others and really get an idea about who they are. But there are things that you can learn from. There are things that you can grow from. So I don't think there's anything weird. It's things that you can look at and grow and do what you need to. Yeah, I don't know. It goes back to the definition of what you consider weird. Okay, what makes a party boring? I think when I look at it, because I enjoy speaking and talking to people, but I am one of those individuals too, though. I used to be a big introvert. Now it's kind of flipped where I'm an extrovert. But when I'm in a new situation, Delaware, lack of tequila makes the party boring. Okay, that can make it interesting and whatnot. Depends on how you drink it and what you're throwing together and whatnot. So, but yeah, no, I think lack of interaction, but I also enjoy having the games. I enjoy having different things to bring people together, maybe a little bit of competition and whatnot. But I think just if there's not good energy in the party, that just makes it boring. Honestly, it does. So I've got to have the energy and whatnot. So it's, yeah, for me, what makes the party boring? Lack of energy. What is the most embarrassing thing you have ever worn? Not embarrassing because it was for a Christmas party and it was an ugly sweater party. I was like, I'm going to show up in a onesie. So I went and found a reindeer onesie. There's a video out there of me doing karaoke. So yeah, so not the embarrassing thing. I just showed up and I told people this is what I'm going to do. So that's what happened. So yeah, it was interesting. I enjoyed it. It was a good time. I won the ugly sweater competition, even though it wasn't a sweater, but it's because I told people this is what I'm going to do, showed up and did what I said I was going to do. Oh man, that's good times. All right, we got one more here. Would you rather? So let's go ahead. We'll do two out of here of would you rather? No, that's boring. Would you rather have a magic button that erases songs you hate or bad movies from being released? Oh my goodness. Magic button. I think that's the thing though. Like a bad movie from being released because like the movie producers do a great job with the trailers and whatnot. So how do you know it's a bad movie until you go see it? Songs, on the other hand, that you hate, I don't know. I guess it depends on how you look at it. Delaware said he would erase bad movies. So I can see that. But it goes back to the question of how do you know it's going to be a bad movie? Because this is talking about bad movies from being released. So being released is new movies, and trailers can be very deceiving. So I guess for me, it'd be songs I hate. But that's the thing, though. For me, like, I don't hate music. I listen to everything. I'm one of those people that it makes it easy. So Delaware said, but then again, there is Baby Shark, and I've seen a meme in regards with 2020 and everything that has taken place, and I think it was Doodad on Facebook. He's like, Baby Shark was an omen to open up the portal to bad things happening. When I saw that, I just started laughing. I was like, oh man, I didn't get the meme exactly, whatever he posted, but it was the gist there. Yeah, so I guess are we changing our answer there, Delaware? I'm going from erasing bad movies to erasing songs you hate. So maybe that's what we have going on. So last one here. Would you rather change your first name to a name you hate or get a small tattoo on your face? What the? Would you rather change your first name to a name you hate or get a small tattoo on your face? Well, you know what? You could end up. So for me, I shave my head, so I'm bald and whatnot. But for individuals, you could cut a little spot and like put the tattoo in up in your hair, and then it just grows back and you never see it. So that way you don't have a name that you hate. Because the one thing you hear is that the most beautiful sound in the world is your name being spoken. So if you have a name that you've changed to a name that you hate, I don't know about that. That could be tough and whatnot. So we have Jim Joe that had said she would change names, then pay to rechange it back. Okay. I don't know if I would go through the hassle and then have to pay for it, but that's my opinion. So if that's what you're going to do, more power to you. And then Delaware stated smarts. I think we got fuck it face tat. So yeah, for me, honestly, man, I couldn't have a name that I hate, because then every time somebody calls your name or you hear it across the room, you're just going to be angry. So JM Joe, I would not have something on the face for life. Okay. Yeah, I can see that. So because that's something that you'd have to live with. So yeah, it's unique and whatnot. Yeah, so I enjoy pod decks because, as you can see, conversations can turn out to be very unique. You get some different perspectives, some different crazy ideas and whatnot. One of the decks that they have in there is a philosophy deck. So, and if you're interested in philosophy, that can be discussions that can go down some crazy paths into some crazy rabbit holes and whatnot. You just never know. But man, truly, myself and Marion, we do greatly appreciate everyone's support. We do appreciate people supporting what we're doing. All we ask, though, is if you find value in the podcast, you find value in the live stream, all we ask is that you share it with other individuals that could benefit from what we share, benefits the information that's being provided, benefit being able to jump in, find a tribe that you feel comfortable in, you have that space, it's non-judgmental. So that's the biggest thing that we do ask, is that you share the podcast, you share the videos, whatever it is. And I know we do have, because we go through Anchor with our platform, so you can find the podcast there. We do have it set up where our audience or family can provide monthly contributions. That's just a way for podcasters really to be able to hone their craft, be able to continue to create content share the value, share the message. So there is that link on Anchor that you can click on, provide a monthly donation that would allow us to continue to provide value, provide the content. And then, like I talked about, if you are in a boat that you feel like you don't know what to do, you feel you're stuck, you need a coach, you need somebody that's there for you that can provide the gentle accountability, create the space for you to grow and go from baseline, whatever that baseline is for you, to thriving in whatever aspect that is, reach out to me. There's several different ways. You can reach out through Facebook, email, and there is where I do a 30 minutes discovery call. Just kind of figure out where you're at, what you're looking at, working on, what you want to do to grow, and what you see for yourself, future envisioning and whatnot. So if you have any questions, reach out. But again, thank you guys for your time. The podcast episode will be uploaded here Tuesday when I'll have it uploaded, and then through uploading through Anchor, we'll get shot out to all the other platforms. But again, and then the last thing too, if you are looking for a tribe, you're looking for that group, we do have our Facebook group that you can come join. It's After Divorce, Grace, Laughter, Lessons. So it is another avenue to have that tribe, have that family that you're looking for, because you don't need to feel like you're on your own. We're all going through something similar when it comes to that journey beyond divorce. And we just want to have that space for you where you feel comfortable, you feel safe, and you can end up growing and becoming the best version of yourself. So other than that, I'll catch you guys later. Thank you guys for your time. Thank you for your support. We will catch you guys next week.